Okay, today I'm spilling some tea about the Crimes of Grindlewald, okay? Because I know everyone's doing this. I know it feels like everyone's hating on this film, and if you haven't seen it, maybe you don't get it yet. Maybe you've stumbled across this video and you're just like, please, Jen, give me something to hope for. Well, I mean, I'm gonna start the video off with the things that I like, but it is strongly outweighed by the things that I hate. So before we jump into this video, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. This is a safe space to talk about all things nerdy, book related, anything. I mean, it's a safe space. So that being said, please be kind in the comments below. I know that this movie is getting a lot of hate and there's a lot of feelings, and I have some, and some you're not going to agree with, and I'm not going to agree with you. Be nice in my comments. I'll block you or kick you off. But otherwise, if you're being kind and just sharing your opinion, I'm happy to debate, talk, analyze with you. That is what I'm here for. If this is your first time here, I make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is a special bonus video because I need to share it with the world and get your feelings. Maybe they align with mine, maybe they're not. Like I said, I'm gonna start off with the things that I love. Wait, here we go. So, some things that I liked. Let's start with that. Number one, it always feels so good to get back into the wizarding world when you hear that music that's just a little bit different than Harry Potter. And it just gives you all the feelings because you're like, it's going down. Like, it's going to happen. Like, it just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So straight up, I love that. Next, I do like the opening scene. This scene that is pretty much completely shown in the trailer, though, is Grindelwald escaping. Like, we all know he's going to escape. And so it's just like seeing how he does it. And I'm not going in to any of the issues about it. Like I said, I have a whole other part that is about the issues. And if you want to skip to a certain part of the video, I'm actually going to list chapter times down below of like when I'm talking about each thing. So you can jump to that if that's what you want to hear about. So I love the opening scene. I love how we get to see little cool pieces of Grindelwald. I want to say Gryffindor. No, of Grindelwald already, like how he throws that poor animal out who just like helped him. He just throws it away. And like cruelty to animals and creatures is always a first sign of an evil person. Like, you know what I mean? Like when they are throwing shade to some animal, you're like, you're a bad person. Love the whole opening scene. Next, my favorite thing in the movie, anytime they showed this, was Dumbledore and Hogwarts. I think Jude Law did a great job. I think he didn't have enough to do. That's going to be my complaint later as well, is I think a lot of characters didn't get enough time to breathe. And I think Dumbledore is one of those who suffered from it. And especially because Grindelwald and Dumbledore are really like played up for this film. Like they were used a lot in the promotional things. We were supposed to get really excited about them. And then pretty much everything Dumbledore does, you saw it in the trailer, except for a few things. And that always disappoints me when they spill all the good beans in the trailer. Like, save me some cool beans for later, right? So that disappointed me, but I thought he did so great. I loved teaching him, watching him teach class. Although I'm pretty sure he never taught Defense Against the Dark Arts. He's known for teaching Transfiguration, but it was cool to get to see him in there. He looked so classy, like leaning up against, that's one of the pictures we always saw, was him like leaning up against the desk, and you're like, Dumbledore, you fly as F, like, you know. Doesn't really picture our idea of Dumbledore, but I was loving it, and I'm totally fine if he went through a hipster phase back in the 20s. Loving it. Also, anything we see of Hogwarts, minus one person that I will get to later, but it was just so cool to be there. We got the drop of like McLaggen, who we know is in later books, and I loved when we got to see Leta and Newt there. Like it was so good. Love that. What else? I love Jacob. I wish he had more time, but every time he was in there, every scene he had, I was so into Jacob. He is so sweet. He's so full of life. He's just in awe over the wizarding world. I mean, obviously I'm happy he's still not obliviated. I feel like that should have been a little more work to free him from it. However, I just love him. I love how calm he is with Queenie once he is saved from the potion or whatever she put on him. I love how calm he is with her, and he's like, we will you know, like, we'll find a way. Like, I'm worried for you. I love you. But also his passion for Newt's animals and how him and Newt just like bounce off of each other. I love Jacob, and I want to believe that he's the type of muggle I would be in the Harry Potter universe if I wasn't a witch, which of course I want to be a witch. But there's just something about Jacob that just draws you in because he's such like an unlikely like person for us to want to follow. You know what I mean? But he just has such joy for the wizarding world, and that's the joy that we feel, and I just love seeing that in him. And then finally on the list of things that I like is all of the beasts. Oh my gosh. And I mean, they should be, because it's called Fantastic Beasts. And I know that that's kind of a reference to, maybe more now we're seeing it's in more reference to the fact that like Newt is the main character, but also like the beast should be a big part of it. I love his zoo at home. The Kelpie was really cool, but I mean, come on. The baby Nifflers, like, don't you just want a little pack of them living in your house? Like, even if they're gonna mess everything up, like, you want them. You want them. So anyway, I want some Nifflers really bad. And the Bowtruckle, ooh, the Bowtruckle is still so cute. Like, how many times he helps us all out, and he's just always living in Newt's little pocket, and he's just so cute. And then I also loved the Chinese dragon. So cool. It did feel a little repetitive about like the same scene mixed with like that like dragon creature that was in the last one, as well as kind of the escape from Gringotts. Like, it seemed kind of like a mashup of those, but callbacks are okay. But I really enjoyed that animal, and I love the little toy that Newt uses to get it to do what he wants. So I was all about the animals. They were awesome, and it was so much fun. So now I'm going to get into the ranty phase. If you just wanted to hear the good things, now's probably a time to leave. But the reason I made this video is I just had to share some feelings. And a lot of my friends were willing to talk with me, but they also aren't as deep into Harry Potter mythology as me. So they didn't see the same issues that I see with it. And I know that you, my loyal friends and booktubers, feel the same. Your heart beats the same as mine, and we have the same pain. So I know you feel me. These aren't in any particular order. I just kind of wrote them down as they hit me when I was thinking of things that I didn't like. So the first one is the pacing of this movie. It just was frustrating, but I kind of expected that I would going in, because this is the second of what's going to be 5 movies, and it's not like with the Harry Potter novels where there is kind of a beginning, middle, and end already built into those books, because it's like it's a school year, so there's a start, a middle, and an end. This is just one of 3 middle movies. So yeah. The next thing that is a big deal, and pretty much all the rest of these things I'm going to say fall into it, and that is the inconsistencies that this movie introduces into the wizarding world. And I'm smiling right now, but I'm so annoyed / angry / betrayed as a viewer and longtime lover of Harry Potter. And I need some answers, or I need you to explain. Like, Joe's never been silent about explaining things before, and it just, like, I just want to like take the memories out and like not see them anymore. So one of the main things, and a lot of people are talking about this, is how they're changing the rules of magic. And there's just so many examples of this, from the weird age line / trustworthy line, like prove your loyalty line, that turns into fiend fire that needs to be stopped by Finite Incantatem, that is going to take over all of Paris if they can't stop it, to Nicholas Flamel being this fragile old dude. Like, what's the point of an elixir of life if that's the life you're living? If you're so fragile someone can't hug you, like, why would you want to live for 600 years in that state of life? Makes no sense to me. To the way that they do spells, to the way that just in front of Muggles, there's so much stuff happening. Like, someone just mentioned in a video I watched, I'll link her down below. I'm sorry, your name just went out of my head while I'm thinking about this, is like, when Ron and Harry drove a car to school, there was all these muggles, and it was so bad. Like, they got detention for it because the ministry had to go and wipe people's minds. And the fact that they're just like, is a statue that moves, and they're able to just like port key into random places, like, they're not invisible to everyone. That's the point. And the other thing, like, why are they just wearing normal clothes all the time? Like, Dumbledore, like I said, it looks fly AF, but he wears weird robes. Like, they have trouble blending in. Like, everybody kind of sees that they stand out. Like, do you see any like, only the people who are consistently around muggles wear like regular clothes. And even them, they wear weird bright colors, and they wear clothes in the wrong time of year. And everyone's just walking around looking like Tina with her leather jacket and like fly as ever. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It makes no sense to me. Like, what is a blood oath? Explain. And then how is that different from an unbreakable vow, where if you break it, you die? So what's the difference? And how is Dumbledore going to be able to break it? Because if that was the case, why didn't they just do an unbreakable vow? Because then they never would be able to fight each other, and one of them would die if the other rose against the other. And like, you can't see an unbreakable vow. When Snape and Narcissa did it, they held hands, said the words, did a spell over their hands, and that was it. And if either one of them, like if Snape had broken that, if Snape had broken that, he would have died. So for Tina to see a scar on his hand, what? He could have just got bit by something. Like, why do you think it's an unbreakable vow? Like, you're not supposed to be able to see that. It's a secret. If everyone who had to do one was walking around with a scar, it'd be like, oh, you got a secret. What do you have to do to die if you break that? Like, it makes no sense. So then digging a little deeper into that. So let's say that's what this little pendant really is it has a drop of each of their blood. My big issue with this is when did they do this? Because they do have the fight. They have the fight where Ariana dies. So my theory to make this legitimate is that, let's say they have this fight, Ariana died, they realize that if these two go head to head, it will be catastrophic. It'll be this fight that like burns down the world or ruins everything. And so them wanting to be kind to the rest of the world, I guess, make this blood oath to never fight each other. But that seems like that would be after Ariana would already be dead, because if they'd done it beforehand, how were they fighting each other and she died? Like, after she died, they like broke up and didn't talk anymore. So what is the point in time that they did this when they were still, where there was still sexual tension happening? Because I'm feeling that after Ariana died, Dumbledore wasn't still feeling all lovey-dovey towards Grindelwald and would have done that very sexually charged blood oath and put the blood together. Like, it makes no sense. Besides the fact of the blood oath itself not making any sense to me, also, when did they do it? Because they've had a fight before and someone died. So that could be the reason why they decide to do a blood oath then, is they're like, we don't want more people to die. But then why was it still so in love? I don't know. Please give me a reason. Like, I'm not unreasonable. Explain it to me, but I'm not seeing it. Also, and this was said actually by a reviewer who I watch her movie reviews. Her name is Grace Randolph. And she's not as like, she hasn't read all the books. She's not a huge Potterhead. But one of the things she said is she's like, it feels that Dumbledore is probably pretty ashamed that he made that decision, and ashamed that he was either tricked into loving someone this way or betrayed by the person who loved him this much. And to me, that kind of makes a little bit of sense, because if he was really in love with Grindelwald, I personally believe Grindelwald is a sociopath. So I don't think he ever really loved Dumbledore. I think it was all a game. And if he did love him, I want to see some proof. But I think it was all a game. And I think as soon as he got Dumbledore to do that blood oath and he took the vial of it, I bet there was a scene where he's like, now you can never rise against me, and just like walks away from him. And so I just have this gut feeling that Dumbledore was tricked. And it wasn't just that they had a breakup because they have different views. I think Grindelwald saw someone who was more powerful than him, because Dumbledore says it in the books. He says, I believe I was even a little bit more powerful, but like I didn't have the guts to kill him, you know? And I think Grindelwald saw who was more powerful than him and who had a chance to destroy him. And he saw that maybe he was flirting with him a little bit, and he gets close to him. They, have a good run trying to find the Deathly Hallows. Grindelwald does find one of the Deathly Hallows, but then he's like, well, the only way I'm going to be safe from him is if we do this. So that's just a theory. That's a theory going forward. However, the whole thing with the blood oath and how Dumbledore got in this situation, I need more details than it just being Grindelwald winked at me a couple times and I signed away all my power to fight him. Like that is not enough reason for me. And it never was enough reason for me back when it was just Harry Potter as well. So I need more. Also, let's talk about Queenie, because I want to save a big one for the end. I had a feeling she was going to go dark. There's also a theory by the Super Carlin brothers that they first put me onto it, but I could see it. And I could see the appeal if she wanted to be with Jacob that much. And Grindelwald said all the right things to her. However, I feel like there was not enough build up to this for me. I love Queenie. She was one of my favorite parts in the first movie. She is so amazing, but she can also read minds. Granted, Grindelwald's very powerful, so he could be using occlumency so that she can't get into his mind. However, she can read his mind. So Grindelwald either really truly believes everything, but I mean, we know he's manipulating her, and now he wanted her for her power and he has her on his team. But I just don't believe the Queenie that I love is so blinded by her love for Jacob that she won't listen to sense. So I feel like I'm missing some pieces in between. And so for me, when she walks through that circle, which I want it to be so powerful because she's screaming, because she isn't 100% in. And so the parts of her that like aren't in, I just felt them kind of like burning away from her as she's walking up to Grindelwald. But I just didn't see enough for me to believe this. And it's like, guys, you have 5 movies. Did she have to go with him this time? Like, maybe this could have been pushed off one more movie, and the next movie was her and Jacob getting into more fights and Jacob not agreeing with her and calling her crazy if you were like, it just felt like her fuse was too fast. And for a character who's Tina's sister, who we've been through all these adventures with, who saw Grindelwald as Graves ready to kill Tina and Newt, that she would just go with him for the love of Jacob? I don't believe it, my friends. I don't believe it. I believe there had to be some other things cut from it. I'm just saying, I agree with that. Okay, so finally I'll get to this final piece here because I don't want this to be too terribly long. And that is the big one, the big kahuna, the one that nobody believes as far as I can see, is Credence being Aurelius Dumbledore. Come on. Who, when you heard that, honestly believed it? Like, tell me. And how do you rationalize it for yourself? Like, how do you get to it? It makes no sense with the timeline. It makes no sense with what we've already said. And I get it that these are prequels, but they were written so much later. But you can't just make up a sibling who, number one, would have to be older than he is because both of the parents died. And like, look how old Dumbledore and Aberforth are. And Ariana died at 14. So unless he is but he can't be older because he was a baby. And like, the timelines just don't work. The thing with Fox, like, I fully can believe he's related somehow. Like, I know they have other relatives. But my biggest thing is that why would Grindelwald tell the truth? Like, Credence is looking for someone to be his family and or blame for giving him up. Grindelwald knows that. Grindelwald knows Dumbledore's guilt because the last time he didn't care enough about a sibling, they died. So it's a double-edged sword because Credence, he believes, is the only one who can kill Dumbledore. Dumbledore won't want to kill Credence if he thinks he's his brother because one of his siblings has already died. So it's a perfect storm because Credence, he can sick Credence on Dumbledore and Dumbledore won't want to kill Credence. So of course he's going to lie. And so 2 things about Fox. Number 1, if he's another member of the Dumbledore family, maybe he's a younger cousin or some way that way. Maybe he is an illegitimate child of one of the cousins and that's why he was like given away and sent away, because this would have been like 1912. I think it was the Titanic. But even if it wasn't, it would have been a while ago when he was a baby. It would have been the early 1900s or 1901 to whatever. And so then maybe Fawkes would go to another Dumbledore, or you're telling me that the Dumbledores are the only people that Phoenixes go to? Because I don't believe that. Like, the Dumbledores don't have a monopoly on all the Phoenixes. So those are my two main reasons, but mostly because I just can't believe that Jo would betray us like that by just slipping in another Dumbledore out of the blue. So unless they put this in there, frustrate everybody, and then later on we'll explain Grindelwald is lying, I can buy that. And that's what I'm going to rest on until proven otherwise, because otherwise I just can't do it. And then, yeah. So feelings about that. So I'm holding on to that as a theory, is that they are related somehow, but maybe he's an illegitimate child of someone. But there's no way he's a full sibling, because the dad was in prison since what happened to Ariana, and the mother died shortly after that. So it can't be, my friends. He can't be a full-blooded Dumbledore that way. So, and then one final thing, I'll just say, Minerva McGonagall is -9 years old when this takes place. And yes, it is Minerva. It's in the credits of the film, and it's on IMDb. And according to quite a few different pages and sites, she was born in 1935, which is 9 years after this. So it was fun to see her. Like, I was hoping to see McGonagall, but it would have meant more to me if in one of the later films, she's like going to school the same time as Voldemort, who is just born in 1927. So I don't know. She could just be getting to school in 1945, which is when all this will culminate. Anyway, that's enough. Thank you for showing up, for watching through this video while I rant. I try not to rant about too many things, but mostly this one, I'm just so confused. Like, I'm not just going to straight up give up on this series, because I would never even pretend to think that I would follow through with that. But I'm just kind of hurt that they would confuse us this way if they're not going to pay it off. So this is only the second movie. So for quite a few of these things, I'm willing to, now that I've shared this, hold my peace until proven otherwise. But a few of the things, like the way they told the story, I didn't even talk about, like, with Leta. Like, if Leta really did switch those babies, like, she's a sociopath herself. And you see her walk around with, like, dead eyes all the time, like when she looks at people. Whatever. I don't want to talk about Leta. I don't care. She lived and died now. Her entire story came and ended in one episode of this, and I think that's really stupid that you would just bring her in and get rid of her. I want to know more about Theseus and Newt, why Newt is so cold toward his brother, who doesn't seem to be a bad person. Like, he didn't do anything horrible. Like, the things the ministry asked him to do, like, it's not like he was torturing and killing any of them. He was just following his orders to capture bad people who want to, so I'd like to know why Newt is so cold towards him. Like, it can't really just be about Leta, because he's only been engaged to Leta for a couple months, Theseus. So I want to know more about that. I want to know more about, like, Queenie and Tina and what's going on. I need the relationship between Newt and Tina to progress, because we know they end up married to each other. So hopefully that happens soon, because these films take place over quite a few years, it sounds like. But their relation didn't even make any sense to me. What happened to Newt's assistant gets introduced. She's obviously in love with him, and then she just disappears. So confused. But anyway, it comes back to this is only the second movie. I feel like they just bit off more than they could chew, but also didn't explain anything. And then Common Spence put up this quote about, like, Nagini, if this is the same Nagini, if this Nagini isn't an ancestor of our Nagini, because that's one of my theories, is I think that because it's a blood curse that gets passed down to the women in a family, that maybe she has a child with someone, and then that Nagini, the child of Nagini, becomes Voldemort's Nagini, because she would have to be super old. And, like, I know eventually she won't turn back into a human, but still, that would make her like 100-year-old snake by the time she's working with Voldemort in the 1990s. Like, come on. So anyway, we shall see. I'll withhold judgment till further. And I hope that later on, my friends and I were saying this, I hope that later on, this movie plays better when you're watching it like a binge fest. Like, it'll just be like that sad second episode when you're watching, like, all 5 of them. So we'll see. But anyway, like I said, thank you for stopping by the Book Refuge. This is a safe place to talk about things nerdy, book related, movies, TV, whatever you want. I'm happy to talk about it. Keep things decent in the comments. Anything I've said, if you have an opinion on, I would love to hear it. Just be nice, as I'll be nice to you. And yeah, I make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and sometimes on Saturdays. And I look forward to talking to you later. Bye.